Welcome to the Audiobook Lovin Podcast, discussing all things audiobooks with the authors that write the stories and the narrators that perform them. Brought to you by Viviana, Enchantress of Books.
Because that's what it does now. Thank you, COVID. Let's see. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Season 4, Episode 31 of the Audiobook Lovin Podcast. Today, I am chatting with narrator Tyler Darby. Welcome, Tyler. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
Thanks. Why don't we start by having you tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been narrating, and how you got started?
All right. Yeah, I've been narrating coming up on 3 years real soon, May-ish, June-ish, something like that. And I got started back in just before COVID in 2020. I was a middle school special ed math teacher. And during the summers, I like to have something to do when I was teaching. And so one summer I worked for my buddy as trimming trees. Another summer I worked at a Jersey Mike's for a buddy of mine, just to have a little money on the side and to kind of keep busy during the summer. But this summer I had moved and I didn't really have the same group of friends to kind of call on, and I was bored. And so I was like, you know what, I'll buy a mic. I've always wanted to do voice acting. I'll see if there is actually anything there. And I bought a cheap mic and watched some YouTube videos and made a little silly demo, and put a bunch of foam up in a closet and started auditioning on ACX back when ACX actually was working a lot better 3 years ago. Not to get into all of that, but it isn't as productive as it used to be, sadly. And yeah, I almost immediately got on with this production company that was giving me 150. Are we allowed to talk money a little bit? I'm not going to go too wild into it, but
well, I mean, it's interesting when it comes down to the money, how sometimes people
clam up so hard on
they
that.
do, and it's a bit, and I understand, but at the same time there are industry standards, thanks to SAG-AFTRA. And also sometimes having these conversations.
Well, I am not SAG-AFTRA yet, so yeah. I am under no pressure. I'll say what I want.
Well, I mean, the misconception of books costing by billions of dollars, and I'm like, yeah. Well, there's a lot that kind of goes into it, so yeah.
But I started off at for me, what felt like a whole lot of money at the time, $150 per finished hour. And they were just like, hey, you finish a book, we'll give you another book. And so I was like, I quit teaching. I quit.
Just like that. Okay. Nope.
Yeah, I called up pretty much immediately. I was like, I will not be coming back. And that was great for up until about Christmas. And then that production company dissolved and sold out to another company. And then I was back to auditioning, and I didn't have a job. And so I subbed for a while, trying to make ends meet, trying to get everything together. And about the time I started getting back into having some regular work was that spring break when COVID hit. And so it was really wildly good timing for me. I finally started having enough money to barely make ends meet at the exact same time where I was absolutely unprepared or unwilling to go back to school and sub at that point. So so that's that's kind of a long story, I guess, but that's how I got started.
Yeah. Well, I mean, teaching is an honorable profession, but Thanks. My God, the things that you guys have to put up with. I wanted to be an English teacher when I was growing up and started to take the courses in early high school, like the AP courses and stuff like that to get my, classes in early and things like that. And then as soon as I graduated high school, I started working for a school in middle school as a front desk receptionist and office manager. And I quickly learned, I was like, no, not for me. Sorry. It's changed. And there's so many different things. It's an admirable profession. And I admire teachers. I mean, I'm married to one, but it's hard. It's really, really hard.
It is hard.
Yeah.
And I'd been working with special needs since I was about 16. And I kind of was coming from the private sector. I'd worked at summer camps, and I'd done at-risk youth guides, outdoor wilderness guide things, and working with the ARC. I think that's defunct now, but at the time, and then so I was like, well, I'm not making any money on this gig work. I want to work with kids and I want to make it my profession. And so I got all my certifications thinking, oh, it's going to be different as a SPED teacher because obviously this is a special education and I need to have all my IEPs, and therefore IEPs are your individual education plan. God, we're not talking about in books right now, but yeah, and it just wasn't. Long story short, it wasn't. It was the same rigmarole, only worse. All I got out of it was frustration that no one was like taking my kids seriously, and yeah, so.
Yeah, again, very admirable. So many things can go into it, and I'm sure we can probably have an entirely different episode on what we should be doing and being grateful for.
Yeah, and
teachers.
Educational, absolutely.
Yeah.
We could have an education podcast. I could talk 4 hours.
Yeah, I know a couple of other people too, so it'd be a great episode. But since you've been doing this, it's an interesting time frame that you kind of came into it, because while audiobooks were in the right trajectory as far as going upward in popularity and even from a business perspective, before the pandemic hit, it skyrocketed. Like,
yes,
nobody's business around the pandemic.
Out. I have nothing else to say about it other than I got super lucky on this one. I will say, in my defense, it is after a string of professional failures over the course of my life. So I picked myself up and got up enough times that one finally stuck, So it didn't happen at 20 for me,
No, but you know what they say, it's, you gotta, when something kicks you down, you go, fuck, and you dust it off and you get back up again, and then you keep moving forward. That's
my whole thing. The greatest people on the planet will tell you that they have failed they have failed more times than the average person has tried.
Yes.
And so that's, if you want to be somebody, anybody, then you better be ready to accept that failure is a part of that process.
Yeah. And then how to learn to move on from that failure and learn something different. And if you're making the same mistake.
If you fail, then it wasn't meant for you.
Exactly.
It's just the universe letting you know that there's something different for you, because I tried a park ranger, pilot, I've a rancher, the list goes on and on and on, as the teaching, obviously, as a pizza delivery boy. It goes on and on and on and on.
Well, now you have all the genres already and the tropes already set up for success.
Oh yeah, there you go. Cowboy.
Sure.
I haven't been a mafia don. I haven't done that. So.
Okay. So
I'll have to work on
more research on that one, but not.
I don't know if I want to get in organized crime just for the method approach to my acting, but
probably not.
Hey.
Probably not. But there's a lot of research the library can help out with. That's for sure.
Yeah, there you go. I'll just watch Goodfellas 3 or 4 times in a row.
Right? Yes. But aside from the, when it comes down to kind of researching, anytime that you do have a new gig, and you're learning a new career aspect of things, did you do any kind of like learning about audiobooks in this genre within romance, some of the other stuff that you do while you started kind of rising up the ranks and getting them?
This is probably going to be a controversial thing I'm about to say. I specifically made an effort I used to listen to some audiobooks and I wouldn't say voracious, but I'm a reader, and I actually stopped listening to audiobooks so that I would imitate nothing and no one. I know that's like, I don't know, it sounds, I don't know how it sounds, but
no, I think a lot of people, even authors, don't read within their same genre when they're writing books because of that fear of potentially.
I don't want people to be like, oh, you know who he sounds like? No. And so, and I just wanted it to kind of do it my own way. And if that was successful, then I would know it was working. If not, then I'd try another approach, but it was successful for me. So I haven't really listened to what other people do. Couldn't tell you. But
I think before we started recording, something about theater background.
Oh, yeah. All the way up until college, I did theater. 5th grade and until college, I did theater consistently. And then I was like, oh, I got to be an adult, and adults don't have acting jobs. And so
few
I
years
went and
forward, here you go with the
I spent
mic.
over a decade just being miserable because I had some ridiculous idea that I wasn't supposed to be acting, that grown men don't act, Well, I got to say, I stopped in about 2001. That's how dating myself. That's how old I am. And there wasn't like, I couldn't just build a studio in my house. Like, it was like, go to LA, and I wasn't aware of the anime scene in Dallas. So if I had been, that might have been an opportunity for me. So I was just like, okay, so am I moving to Hollywood now? And I was like, no, I'm not going to live in my car and move to Hollywood. And I was like, okay, well then get a big boy job.
Yeah. They don't do that when you're in school. I've said it several times before. Like when you're in high school and the question of what do you be when you want to grow up comes up, it's always like the traditional doctor, lawyer, educator, nurse, blah, so on and so forth. No one tells you that you can make a living off of taking photos for book covers or
they
graphic
really
design work,
They want to pretend like the arts is like an elite and incredibly difficult line of work to get into. And I mean, any career field will take effort, talent, and skill, but it's just like anything else. Like if you love it, if it's your passion, and you have talent, Jesus, please have talent. That's a big part of it. But if you have those things, then there's jobs. There's jobs.
Yeah. I mean, totally. It's like, what? I can get paid to edit a book, and I can get paid to be the assistant of the photographer taking the photo of the sexy guy. Yeah, okay, sure. Did not know any of this.
Exactly. And that's the other thing is like, there's jobs within the industry that aren't like, if you just love the industry. Yeah, I have so many friends that are like looking for work, and yet in our industry, we're constantly looking for editors.
Yeah.
There's just not enough editors.
Oh,
and these guys get paid $90 an hour to edit this stuff up. It's not a crap position, but no one's aware that all you have to do is build a stack and spend 45 minutes listening to somebody do an audiobook, which you do anyway.
Right.
And like, people are going to pay you bukus for that.
I know that's definitely one thing. I've been talking to some of the, like my niece and stuff. And even though when I've been brought back to high school to do some conversations about careers, it's one of the first things I said. I go, you can get paid a good, $75 to $90 per hour to edit an audiobook that ranges between 8 hours to 25, sometimes depending on the author.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, no. And I'm like, yes.
And in like, demand, what? And demand. People come if you're doing it for $75 an hour, you're going to have more work than you know what to do.
Oh God. Yeah. No, yeah. And I'm also a firm believer that if you just start, don't bust out with the $9 an hour,
you'll get to 90.
You'll get to 90. You'll get there. I promise you, soon enough, you'll get there.
Yeah, as soon as you get good and a few people who like you, 90 is what you'll be asking for in no time.
Yeah, exactly. So these are the things that they never talk about when we're younger. And
they give you like 12 options.
Right. like military. I'm like, no, I don't want to go kaboom.
Do you want to be an accountant? And just like, I don't want to sit in a box. Like, are there any jobs that I don't sit in a box and someone like looks over my shoulder telling me that I'm not doing well enough in my box all day?
Oh, cubicle world. I don't love that at all. No, but now I for someone that has done it for a while, I hate it. But here you are now technically sitting in a box. But narrating
that's true. It's true. It's a freer box. The issue with the box isn't so much that it's a box. It's that there's a man standing on the outside of the box watching me.
Yes. Now, usually with audiobook narrators and stuff like that, it's usually a cat or a dog saying, "Is it feeding time?"
Oh, Crockett is so mad that the door is closed right now. My dog is. I promise you. I think he thinks it's personal when I go into the booth.
Yeah. Like, human, why must you have alone time? Do you not love me anymore? Why do you
go into that one small room? We have this whole house to hang out in, and you spend half the day in that tiny little room. You hate me. You clearly hate me.
You hate me. Yeah. So like, how do you poop in there? It's probably also what they're wondering. I love it. I know. I get my dogs too. They're like, why can't they come in here while you're why? And I'm like, because I'm recording. Yes, I have these conversations with them, and they just look at you with literally puppy set eyes, and I'm like, sorry, love you, bye-bye. I'm gonna go talk to Tyler now.
Crockett is a 180-pound golden retriever, and he
Aw.
would sit here and be the perfect little boy, but there's no room. There's
Yeah,
literally
see?
no room for another person to be in here.
Yeah. So he would probably be advocating for a bigger booth for you then, because just a little leg room there for him too.
Well, he's going to be upset about that when we move into the ambulance. So
Oh no.
he's not going to let more room. He'll spend more time outside. That'll be nice.
Oh goodness. Yeah, well, and it's interesting again from a career perspective. This is something that you can do whether you move. There's studio space that you can rent out if you're in that moment where you need to go record something, but the studio's not ready for you at the house. It's yeah.
I am building out an ambulance to a tiny home with the solar and the whole thing, and I'm gonna put a booth in it, and I'm gonna work from the road.
Wow. So you weren't kidding when you busted out with ambulance. You were like,
no, I own an ambulance that I'm renovating into a little tiny home right now. We're wiring it up. We've got it all stripped down. We're gonna do the whole thing, man.
So I've heard of the small houses as far as like buses, like school buses, which in your case would probably be like fuck you.
Yeah, PTSD. Just
right,
every time I go to my house, I get triggered.
Yeah, but I've never heard of an ambulance being used.
Yeah, they're cheap. They're really well maintained. They're designed to protect the people inside of it. They're big square boxes, but they're not as long as a bus, so you could park one potentially in a parking place. So the advantage, big diesel engine will run hundreds of thousands, if not 1,000,000 miles.
Wow, get to see the country, travel, still recording, get money and
That's
work.
exactly
Nice.
it. I'm going to see the country and make money, and I could not be more excited about it.
That sounds like fun. You're gonna have to give us a tour to like a bit of a video. Once it's all set up and done, you have to give us a behind the scenes kind of a look of what it looks like to record now.
I'm debating on the whole YouTube channel thing and do that whole. It would be very synergistic, I feel like, with the narrating, but that's a lot of effort.
Yeah, it is. I always suggest people when they think about stuff like that, I'm like, just record it just for the sake of recording, even for your own sake. Later on, a couple of years, you're like, look what I did.
It's the editing that gives. I'll record all the stuff and be so charming on the camera or whatever, and then it's like I got to sit down and edit this into something watchable.
I know, right?
And that's where the block hits me. I'm just like, I'd rather not.
I know. I'm the same way. I'm like, that's why I have an editor for the podcast now, because I'm like, I love y'all. I love talking to y'all. But in order to edit, I have to listen to us again. And I'm going, no, God, what else I could be doing instead? So
that was the worst part of starting off with the voice acting is you'd read this book 4 times. Now, no matter how good the book is, by the time you're on your 4th run through of it, you hate it. Because you at first, you're reading the book to start with. You're doing a quick read through, prepping it, and then you get in the booth. And I personally like to do a quick read through the chapter, like read it out loud, so it's fresh in my brain. It makes the reading of the chapter go much more smoothly for me. Ends up saving me time in the long run. So that's the 2nd and 3rd reading, and then went back when I was editing my own books. I now I have to listen to myself for a 4th time, read the book again. And I don't care if it's Dickens or Hemingway. I don't care who your author is. I hate this book at this point.
Yeah.
So,
and also the self-criticism, I'm sure.
And listening to yourself was, and not wanting to go back in the booth and record every 6 lines, which you would then have to stitch in and ruin the recording anyway. You just... It is a minor nightmare.
Yeah, that is one thing I think every narrator has in common is after a while they're like, either I give you the raw files to the production house and they're not doing any of the editing, or they hire an editor to do that side of things because they're done.
I'm there. Yeah. I'm there. I would rather just not do the book. I can't do that anymore.
No, it's just a lot of also time spent because now you're editing the book that you just finished recording, where you could be also then recording another book.
Right. And I'm sure everyone who listens to this podcast is aware, but we get finished per finished hour. So it's not like we don't get a regular hourly rate. If I'm in the booth all day long, but I spend all of that time on my phone on TikTok, I don't get paid anything being in the booth. I have to make content to be paid. So I think that can be a little confusing when we talk about numbers and we throw out like those big numbers, like 150 per finished hour. Well, when I first started off, it would take me almost 6 hours to produce that. 6 hours is a slight exaggeration, but a long time between prepping, pre-reading, reading, and editing to get that hour-long worth of content.
Yeah, because
it takes me a lot less time now, but starting off, I was making minimum wage essentially.
Oh yeah, because they say for every hour of finished recording that you get, it's about 2 hours.
2 to 3, depending on the book genre and your comfort level within it and stuff. With my romance stuff, if it's a pretty my regular voice that I use most of the time, and it's not an overly complicated plot, and there's not a ton of different accents and characters, I can hit close to 2 to 1. But if you put me on a fantasy and I'm having to look up Mirren Tillinelrofillin and its pronunciation every 3 words, he's talking to Palaglarialiel or whatever, that's going to take a lot longer for me to get through it.
Yeah. And that's, again, not including the prep work that you did to be able to figure out that those are the characters that you're doing and talking, and what accent that would require and anything like that. So yeah. So that's when people say, again, for those that might not have listened or know about that, per finished hour means when you go to Audible and it tells you 8 hours, that's what they're getting paid for. It's just the 8 hours.
It could take me anywhere between 16 and 24 hours to record that 8 hours, but I'm only getting paid for the 8 hours. Just a little insider business there.
Yeah, there's math involved, and it's just a lot of things. And that's also where sometimes other narrators are having a higher rate, also depending on how long they've been in the industry and what they do. Mm-hmm. That covers some of the overhead costs as far as hiring someone to do the editing and even some people that do the prep work. I have a narrator that hires someone to do the prep work for them, so they don't have to. So they just get the finished notes of like, okay, so absolutely. I'm doing a French accent in chapter 5, a Canadian accent in chapter 8, and the Russian accent in chapter 12. So it's not a surprise.
I'm not there yet. I'm just below that level. I haven't hired preppers yet, but I will build in. If you're going to make me hire an editor, I build that into my rate.
Yeah. I think that's with any kind of company, with any kind of, third-party vendors, what we like to call them in corporate world. Yes. So it's like, I have to hire a third-party vendor. Sorry. But it works out.
It does.
Yeah, it does. I mean, it's business. We all have to look at it from that perspective, and it's a talent.
Those emails can be a little awkward when you're when you're like, I quoted 250, but I thought you were taking care of the editing. I mean, 350.
Yeah. Those have been some of the panels I've been on lately about things you should all talk about before finalizing that hour.
I'm getting better at all of these things. Yeah. I'm getting my contract. Experience leads to wisdom. So.
Oh, absolutely. Trust me. It's that like, from an author's perspective, if if they look back at that first book that they ever wrote and published, it'll probably get redone a few times now after 10 years.
I'm so glad my first 3 books that I recorded have been taken off of Audible completely.
See, so I think every narrator has that thought.
God.
Yeah. I know Sebastian York has. I think Shanice has mentioned some stuff like that. Even Joe. I mean, they're always anybody at first when we first start anything new. We're new. We're green. We learn.
Yeah, and I was, oh my God, and I was doing my own editing, and I had there's clicks in it and repetitions. This is before I was punch and roll, right? So I have a little, here, can you hear that?
Yeah.
That's a flashlight I would use as my clicker.
You would use a flashlight? Oh.
Yeah, a broken flashlight. It clicks, right?
Yeah, usually people do the whole snappy thing, like, kind of or my favorite, the dog training clicky thingy, I
didn't want to buy anything. I didn't want to go. I just looked around my house and was like,
what's broken and makes noise? Flashlight.
Exactly.
Yay,
I found something.
You were resourceful.
It could have just as easily been a crappy drill or something like that.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with being resourceful, says the girl that's also very resourceful. I will figure it out.
Thank you.
Totally.
To this day, part of my booth is sleeping bags. So
it's not one thing or another. It's how you insulate it, right?
Right. Hey, it works. The sound quality gets me work. So if it isn't
Yep.
broken, I don't see why I'd fix it.
Yeah, no, it's yeah. Not everybody gets at the beginning. I'm like, okay, where are you recording? And they're like, I was in the closets. And
I lucked
those
out that I had a
influence-
whole empty closet to devote to
See?
this. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't have clothes in here with me. It's just me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's always fascinating, that whole journey of when someone first starts as a, VO actor, narrator, to now where they're at after a couple of books, and then after 500 books, and after 1,000 books, you're like going, okay, great. This journey is amazing. It's just fantastic.
It's been wildly it's been great for me. It's felt
Good.
very affirming as to someone who has never felt professionally affirmed very often. So
Yeah. I mentioned the prep work and all the accents and stuff like that. The thing is that as listeners, we are suckers for accents. We do love them. Especially when we're not surrounded by them. Like when I travel to Savannah, Georgia, it's like a 6 hour, 4.5 hour drive for me, since I'm the one driving.
We're
And
opposite drivers. 6-hour drives take 8 hours for me.
oh, okay. I'm like Speedy Gonzalez in there, but it's fascinating, like the little southern Savannah, Georgia versus Atlanta, Georgia accent, or the the
Absolutely.
Louisville, Kentucky and stuff. What are some of your favorite accents to perform?
As a Texan, I love a good Texas accent. I love to go into the twang and it comes on real natural for me. It's something that I deal with on a daily basis out here. And so I love a Texas accent. What's funny about that is that's the fun Texas accent, but Texas has like 5 accents. We're such a giant place. We have we have that East Texas twang, which just isn't nearly as sexy as the West Texas drawl and like the South Texas sort of like drawl type thing.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody ever is like, when you do Texas accent, they're the, oh, you mean this one? You look sexy, girl. But that's not what people are looking for, I don't think.
Nope. That's the fun psychic character.
Yeah, absolutely.
That ends up being the hero in book 12 that they never told you about.
Oh, that's the fun thing about those books. Oh God, that's so real. So often you start on a book and you don't realize it's going to be a series, and they have some tertiary character in there that they describe as a total nerd zero. And so you're like, okay, obviously this dude talks like this. All right. Hey, what's going on in here? And then like 6 books later, they're like the lead romance in a book. And you're like, what do I do now? How do I fix this hole I've dug myself into?
Oh yeah. Many a times.
He's got to mature a little, I've been working out, so that cubs up a little bit,
Yeah. I've said that sometimes how we hear people is different. So how I hear that best friend, because I'm the hero at that moment in time, or the heroine, it's different than when someone else is talking. So I kind of trip it. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I like that thought process. Yeah. I'm gonna adopt that.
You can totally. Yep.
I need it.
Yeah.
I'm literally doing a book right now where that's literally the case. I'm doing the Viking MC series. Heart of Steel's already out. There's another book where I did Heart of Steel was my regular, just the deep, gravelly voice that I do for most of my books. This is my normal voice for my books. And then the second book was his whisper friend. It was just a little cooler, real easygoing. Third book was my Antonio Banderas accent, which was very difficult. I've never had to do a Spanish accent for an entire book, only secondary and tertiary characters. So to pick it up and have to do it for an entire book was a big challenge for me. It's one of my favorite accents, though. I do love that Spanish accent. And now I got to do Rat. The character's name is Rat. What do I do with that? He's been the kid, like he's the tech nerd for the motorcycle club. And I did not realize he was going to get his own book. And I have been giving him the nerd voice from the start.
Yeah. Well, see, his friends see him as the nerd, right? So he's going to play that up, right? Because no one's going to listen to him otherwise. But then when he goes to the club to get a drink, and then he sees the girl, he comes down here for whatever reason.
And thankfully, the author has given me that he's been working out in previous books. And so he's been bulking up a little bit.
Okay.
So I'm going to try and play into that some too, where that he's gaining some confidence.
Yeah.
He's getting a little bit bigger. you know, maybe he's that voice comes with him a little bit.
Yeah. He's not, he's not hanging out with the guys.
Right.
Think that
he's not just hunched
there.
over a computer playing video games as the first 3 books kind of have him doing.
Exactly. Yeah. That's basically what it when it comes down to it. It's like I've always told authors, I'm like, when you're doing a series, even if you're just testing the waters in an audiobook for the first one and you have no clue if you're going to continue, please tell your narrators that this
that
character
would be nice.
Yeah.
That would be nice.
That peppy best friend that pops into that one scene at the restaurant that it's like, oh my God, like for real, is going to be the heroine in book 4.
Yes.
Because that's just so not
real.
But I mean, I think they're learning to provide a lot of that insight. You guys are learning to ask the questions too when it comes down to a New York client about these things, just because that way you can just prepared.
Yeah, absolutely. I've noticed that, as I said earlier, experience leads to wisdom, and the more books I do, the more I CYA, cover my ass, and pay attention to those sorts of things better and better. And yeah,
I'm gonna borrow that one.
CYA, cover your ass.
I'm gonna CYA this one. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Oh yeah, man. CYA covers a lot of things and situations, man.
Yeah.
The CYA on this one.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be one, especially when it comes down to having some of these conversations. I'm just going to be like, I'm going to CYA this one for us, so we're good, okay?
Yeah, from your position, exactly. Yeah, as you were saying, some people come on here and tell you where they bury the bodies.
Yeah. So. I mean, that's something that I take with great pride, in the sense that you guys trust me. I'm inviting you guys to come over come over to my house for drinks, right? Come over and hang out with me. And so it's also great that's why, when it comes down to that,
get a little too loose, yeah.
I think there's something about me where people are like, oh, I can trust her. And it's true. You can't. I am a vault. I have been still loyal to people that deserve to have those coffins opened. But I don't say anything because, again, I was trusted with the information. And it's also funny just to bust out sometimes. You do remember that I know how to hide a body, right?
Listen, we're in Texas. We all got land.
I'm from Miami, Florida, where we have crocodiles and canals. So
there you go.
Yeah, and farms with pigs. That's an entire different genre right there. Horror, thrillers, mysteries. Oh my.
I think I got a mystery coming out soon, but it's certainly not a Texas field burying mystery.
Okay. Yeah.
I think I'm a grizzled detective of some sort.
Yeah. So even with romance, there are romance as a whole is like an umbrella term with all these subgenres underneath it, where you get your, fantasy romance and your paranormal and your cozy mysteries. And you also get the romantic suspense where things go kaboom and you're like, God, you're hot. I'm going to make out with you. And all things like that. Do you have a favorite genre to narrate in?
Well, it's funny because I enjoy the paranormal, but I don't do a lot of those books. So I would love to do a fun fantasy or ghost romance type thing. I think just for the amusement of it. But those aren't the books that I usually get cast in. So I usually enjoy, because I have sort of a formula and it's easiest for me. I love an MC romance. So that's a group of people that I ride a motorcycle. So it's a group that I could easily channel. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah.
Texas, but I could tough boy motorcycle riders is like,
could totally see you as the shifter bear motorcycle.
I literally couldn't get through an audition that was a shifter bear audition the other day. Because I was laughing so hard. I shouldn't say that, but like, this might be one of those dead body things you need to edit out. But I was reading through the audition, and he was talking to this. He's a billionaire bear shifter, of course. And he's gonna buy this guy's company out, and he's like feels bad, and his bear voice comes on, and he's like, "You shouldn't feel bad. This man's company would go under without you involving yourself." And I just could not help thinking of like, I know it's supposed to be like, bro, I'm your bear voice and you shouldn't worry. But I could not help but be like, oh, you shouldn't worry about it.
For forest fires are bad.
Yeah, listen to Smokey the Bear, you know, and I just couldn't. I really should have. Maybe I'll go back to it because I think I could do a bear shifter, but the bear voice talking to him as another person, like, and
That's
being
interesting.
so reassuring and like positive was just really weird.
I have not see. Usually, when the shifters that I've read and listened to they're almost like one and the same, and when one takes over, the other one kind of goes silent, right?
And that was kind of what I was expecting.
Yeah.
And maybe, and just he would say something like, my bear side is speaking to me and saying these things. But for the bear to have his own sort of character voice, I was just like, I'm out. I'm fully out.
Well, I mean, that's the whole thing behind audiobook narrations, is trying not to make something into a caricature, whether it's the Irish, the Irish accent now starting sounding like Lucky Charms, commercial.
Exactly.
And the same thing with
back of the mouth.
Exactly. And when it comes down to that's, like I said, it's an interesting spin. I've never heard. The only time I've seen Reddit where it's been the shifter animal recognizes their mate and they're like, mine.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And that's it. And usually that's like a lower growlier.
No, this dude gets a whole like business speech from his bear, man.
Wow, that's See, that's a little. That was like, okay, interesting.
I couldn't do it.
You should go back though. You should go back after this conversation with me now and just bust out with
I'm still laughing about it. How am I gonna? It's still funny.
Well, I mean, that's also, again, goes back to, it's an interesting premises, right? And from a narrator's perspective, did they tell you that it was going to be a different, technically a secondary character within the same character? And
it feels pointed. He's got his own quotation marks. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think I've seen something like that, but it's usually been more like on those moments where they want to run and the animal shift in them saying, no, we have to stay and protect. But that's almost like an inner monologue almost. Not an entire,
exactly. And it's just like, you just drop that an octave, put a little extra growl on it and boom. And that's also like a very usually it's a visceral feeling. Like it's like, stop, hunt, like these very like, type sounds. And those are easy. But when he's like, but when the bear is like, don't feel bad, you're just like, no.
Bare necessity, the simple bare necessity.
Yeah. And then so what do I do with that? Do I make it don't feel bad? It's just so
See, but that's totally understand that I would have been like, so can I connect with the author on this real quick?
Yeah. I just skipped it.
Yeah. So I mean, I get it. That's also where that prep work comes into play. Like, the reason why I mentioned the Russian accent on chapter 12 is because there's been narrators that have given no accent to that character until someone mentions the Russian accent, and you're going, fuck, there was a Russian accent. So yeah, it happens. There's always these things that authors are getting creative. I mean, alien romance was not a thing until most recently, and boy, are they getting creative when it comes down to some of the,
I did an alien romance series, Sinners, Saints, or something like that. And it was interesting.
There's one that, from the multiple body parts to how those body parts are designed. And then there's one that I recently learned from an author that there's a bit of that mating ritual where they're like engaged or in a relationship, and the alien gives the human a kitten. And I'm like, oh, that's so cute. I probably would be like, yeah, where do you want to go after this? Because it's a kitten.
That is a huge responsibility to hand off to someone. I would be mad as heck if someone brought me a full-on animal as just so you just committed me to 13 years of responsibility. Thanks a bunch.
But I think that's what they're banking on, that you're going to bust out with, listen, you're taking care of this kitten with me now because thanks. That's probably what they're banking on it. Who knows?
I see.
Yeah.
I see. That's, you're moving. That's bold. That's bold. That's bold, right?
Yeah, but I'm like, okay, there you go. Again, it's one of those
that is either going to work or not work.
Right? As someone that was gifted a kitten when I moved from Miami to Orlando, and it was from one of my work peers. They thought it'd be funny and that I would have a, like what you were saying, some form of non-nice reaction. They gifted me a kitten. I'm like, I'm leaving tomorrow, you know, for, to a different city and stuff like that. I have my own animals to fence with, and now you're busting out with, here's a kitten. I'm like, you bitch.
Yeah.
But Snickers is kicking in 17 years later, adorable and lovely. So, but yeah,
Exactly. 17. They
15
gave you a
years
17-year commitment as a
and then
joke.
some. Yeah.
It's not funny.
No,
That joke gets tired, man.
it does after a while, especially with the intent behind it. Now, but if you know that I
Yeah.
love kittens, then I can take care of them, and it's fine. That's a different conversation.
Right.
But yeah, but it's an alien that, as far as their mating ritual, gives the kitten. And I was like, okay, well, that's
Fair
an
enough.
interesting spin on it. So we know some of your favorites to perform as far as the accents, but what about some of the more difficult ones?
My more difficult accents, obviously, I like anything that feels culturally inappropriate is just right off the list, whether I feel like I could perform it or not. And so that's difficult. What's difficult is when those characters pop up, a Asian character or an African person pop up who clearly have an accent, but they're just for a few lines. I find that to be a bit of a challenge for me. Like, do I do the performance justice and attempt this accent because I do every other accent, or do I just avoid this completely? And that's what I find most difficult. As far as actual accents, I find that my Russian can often move between other accents if I'm not if I'm
Yeah,
not
I heard a little bit of the Highlander
yeah,
Scottish there for a second.
it starts to slip if I don't keep coming back to it. French can be that way for me too. That seems like it slides. My Cockney will slide into an Australian if I'm not careful with it. Slides is what it is. Like if I don't really have a hold on the accent, I will slowly start interjecting other accents when I get confused. So just trying to like fill in that, because it's all an ear thing. So if I'm not super comfortable with it, I'm just trying to guess. And sometimes I don't guess great.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, those are kind of difficult. I think it's also now with the more years in the industry, people are starting to ask those questions of like, okay, what are your accents that are you're proficient in? And I've heard one narrator said to them, I'm okay with it, but if I know you're gonna hire me for it, I'll take some coaching. And I'm like,
That's
nice.
good. There you go. I try to say like anything that's like far Western Europe or American, I can do as a main character. The farther east you go, the more it becomes secondary and tertiary characters. And that's in the sort of the European realm. So like all the British Isles, Scottish and Irish and all of those I can do quite well. And Spanish, right? I've already done that a little bit. All along the coast. French starts to see we get a little more inland. My French gets fuzzy. I'm okay with the German. Don't ask me to do a Netherlands accent. I'm gonna sound like the Swedish fish maker from Muppets. And then Russia, I can, depending. I can do it for a tertiary character, like the Mafia Don, Russian Mafia Don that comes in and goes, "Where is my daughter?" and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I can nail that, but don't ask me to like run a book with a main Russian accent.
Oh no, got it. Hey, we all have our, areas where we excel, and others that we're like, no, it's okay. I know another narrator that has a fantastic accent in that area.
Yeah. I mean, but that's the scary part. Like if it's in a series and you're already signed up for the series, sometimes they just sneak up on you and you just kind of have to like figure it out. You got to start studying up on an accent, which is almost nice because once you master it, you can just put it in the box and be like, all right, now that's the Spanish accent. I'd done it for my Dungeons and Dragons games. I'd played a few characters with that Spanish accent. So I was semi-comfortable, but I'd never had to read a script, which is very different than just making up your own words as you do an accent. Reading a script in an accent is a way more challenging process. And so that was a big growing experience, was getting that accent to where it was truly deep enough that I could say any, like the Spanish accent isn't doesn't sound great with really long words. But learning to get it where it does sound really good with that was fun and challenging.
Yeah. And sometimes those are some of the things that are like, oh, okay, I'm going to learn that accent because it's a challenge. And if you're able to master it enough to do it and pull it off and sounding, as authentic as possible for that accent, is great. But other times you're going, nope, not gonna do
Dungeons
it.
and Dragons is for.
Yeah.
I use Dungeons and Dragons as sort of a launching point for new accents. So I'm working on my Kiwi with a character I'm doing right now because I think this is a fun accent. It's fun to do.
Yeah, but not a sexy one for an 8-hour book.
It's not a sexy one, no, not at all. But it's fun to do. Well, you can tone it down a little bit and make it a little more sexy if you wanted to.
Go.
It's not like it's impossible to make a Kiwi accent a little sexy. But yeah, it isn't really for that so much as just to master it. I enjoy the fact that a Cockney, Australian, and New Zealander are all we're just going up in pitch and slowing down what we're saying. It's the same accent, just with a slightly higher pitch and a slightly fast, slower way of talking. So a Cockney's right here, isn't it? When you're talking real fast, coming at you real fast with an accent, telling you how it is, how it's going to be, right? Australian's the same accent. It's just a little bit higher and a little bit slower. Same thing, a little bit different. And then a Kiwi is just a little bit slower than that and a little bit higher. Same accent.
Yeah. I find all that stuff fascinating, and just I could sit here and probably listen to that stuff like that for hours on end. Yeah. But the thing is, you're also having fun. And I think that that's something else too, that we can tell as a listener when things are fun for you guys and you're excited about it when we're talking about things, even if it's, it may not have been the best audition, but it was so fun to do, because you were trying to figure things out. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I get to have worked, we talked about all the jobs that I've done over the years. I've done terrible, truly awful. I've cleaned industrial waste. That was a job I had for 6 months. It was awful. I've done survey work where I'm out. It was a good job, but we're talking Texas 110-degree summers out on the highway. I've built privacy fence. The point of all of that is I am every day, the gratitude and thankfulness that I get to wake up and do something that I actually enjoy and pays me decently and I get to take pride in. I think that for me is a blessing that maybe not people who have been career actors don't have, because it's this kind of idea that they're like, well, this does suck on the degree that being an actor and anything to do with being an actor could suck. This is not digging an 18-inch fence post hole in 110-degree weather. It is nothing like that. So it's really not easy for me to keep in perspective my frustrations and irritations, because I'm like, well, I don't have to write a multi-layered lesson plan this week that covers multi-step algebraic components and then try to teach it to kids who don't know how to multiply. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. No, I get it. Nothing like coming up with an entire, marketing plan and plan for stuff to do, and then have them say, "Now we're going to listen to someone that has no clue what they're talking about because they've never been to XYZ." I'm like, sure, I just worked on it for hours for no fucking reason. Great.
Yeah, that's great. Awesome.
Love it.
With a smile. Smile.
Yep. It's okay, Mike. I'm going to come over here and do an episode.
And yeah, again, this is as much social interaction as I've had in this career. So I don't even have to deal with someone. That's the other thing, like not having the people come in and just ruin what you're trying to do on a regular basis.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot of
it's perks. A little lonely, but it definitely makes up for it with the lack of office drama and that sort of stuff.
Oh gosh, that is definitely one thing I do not miss in working with a Fortune 500 company. Is all that drama. Office. I like the drama in my books, and even then, depending on the genre, low angst, because I'm like, if you all just talk to each other, speaking to the characters, none of this would be an issue.
Romance novels, and just not just saying
Yeah.
the problem to one another.
Like, just go back and tell him. Just go back.
It's so frustrating.
And then in our own personal lives, we're like, yeah, I'm mad, but I'm not gonna
like
tell you
we're
what
that
I'm
much
mad
better.
about.
Exactly. As if we're that much better. Oh, yeah. We dictate from our fifth person view what idiots they're being. And meanwhile, you won't go to your significant other and just apologize.
I know, right? No.
It's the principle of the matter.
They should know this by now.
Yeah. They should know the ultimate terrible statement in a relationship.
Yeah. They should know this by now.
They should know. Well, they don't.
So what are you going to do about it now?
So I guess we'll just be mad. That's productive.
Yeah. Sit there watching a TV show, not talking to each other. Yep.
Oh my God.
Gotta love it.
Being single is hard, but it's not as hard as that.
Oh yeah. It's work, man. It's work. But you know, when you find the right person,
I feel like the answer when you find the right person, it shouldn't be work, right? Because of your willingness to do the things. And the times that I've been in love, I feel like it wasn't hard. Nothing was hard because the compromises were easy to do. I wanted to do them. I wanted to fix the problem for them because their happiness was so important. So it wasn't hard. It became hard when the love went away because then I don't want to do that shit. I want to play my game or whatever.
Yeah, like leave me alone. I'm playing.
I'm busy. I got problems.
Yeah. Well, I think also too, it's easier when the relationships first start going on into it. 20 years later, you're going, I still love you, but you're driving me batshit fucking crazy. So go over there and play your game so you can leave me the fuck alone.
Not that I should say anything as the single guy giving relationship advice, smart moves, but I think like any relationship, it's about establishing boundaries and patterns, and then maintaining those boundaries and patterns on both. So if the pattern is, I'm going to make sure I do my housework, don't stop on either end. End,
you get used to it. You're like, what's wrong?
Do the thing. Don't make sure you doing your part of that domestic work and boundaries. Don't suddenly start thinking that it's okay for you to, I don't know, poop with the door open if you didn't poop with the door open while you were dating. You know what I mean? Like, if that wasn't okay before, don't pretend like it's okay now. Like,
things you're never going to hear in a romance book.
Sorry, real advice about relationships. You know, just make sure you love them.
Yeah,
love conquers everything, man.
Yeah,
you can just go back to when I talk to people about like being frustrated with their significant other or friends or whatever, I go, okay, well, do you care about this person? Obviously, the answer is yes. Do you think they care about you? Yes. So do you think that they wanted to hurt you when they said that? Or do you think it was really, really hard for them to build up the courage to be able to confront you on something that they knew you might not take well? And usually the answer is going to be, yeah, it's probably really hard. And if the answer is, nah, man, they don't give a shit, get away from that person.
Run.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
But if the answer to all that is yes, this person cares for me, it was probably hard for them, then maybe you should listen to what they had to say.
Exactly. Yeah.
Pretty easy.
But there's also a reason why romance books are usually the meet cute parts and the until they get their happily ever after. It isn't 20 years later. It isn't 20 years later. I mean, as much as a lot of readers are like, well, we want to know what they're up to. You know what they're up to? They're fighting because he left his shoes on the floor
this was
again.
An incredibly toxic relationship to start with. He kidnapped her and
well, see, that's the difference to me. It's like, okay, if she's willing to put up with this at the very beginning, what's going to be her camel's back straw breaking moment of like irritation 20 years later? It's like, what? Did you put the body in the living room again? It's dead.
Exactly.
Honey.
You really established your relationship layers when like you fell in love with him when he kidnapped you. You're like, all right, well, that guy kind of gets to do what he wants in this relationship. I know, right?
It's like, you're surprised about this. You're like, at this point, she's like, can we just put it in the, like basement instead of the living room, honey? Just, the kids
know who you're. Well, that's the weird part too with them. When the women are very like, they're these wholesome, like small town women. And then they get a hold of this psychopath and they're like, but he loves me.
Yeah.
He loves me. He takes good care of me. And the guy's just like in the bathroom chopping up a body. And she's like, tea, baby. He makes such great love to me. It's just like, all right.
The dark romance fantasy aspect of things. I think it's the whole, he would do it to, he will kill for me.
For me.
Or he'll do everything but me. Like
Yeah.
And so it's that whole like
I'll
I'm
be
the one
honest
that
with you,
changes.
that's not how it works in real life.
And the readers will tell you that they know that in real life they would not touch that with a 10-foot pole. But for some reason in fantasy, I'm like, well, hey, as long as you know the difference. You know, as long as there's that boundary. But I'm talking also about like that firefighter next door neighbor that, you know, is really nice and sweet and helped you with the yard one time.
Those are some of my favorite books to do right there. I love a small town romance or like an innocent romance, maybe like a reasonable age gap romance. You know what I mean? A reasonable one, not a creepy one. Like those are fun and sweet to me because it's like I understand the hesitation of why, you know, family pressures. Those are real things that genuinely will derail a relationship and give you great pause. Go, you know, old friends from childhood. Do I ruin this relationship that's always been so good to try and make it something more? That's a real plot line that we've faced in our lives. Some of
at
us,
one
you know
point,
what I mean? Yeah. So and just the sweetness of it, I really like that. That like the guys, they both, it's genuine and real. They both really love each other and they don't know how to express it. That feels fun to me. It's different. I've done like the psychopath where he's just like, you're our property. And eventually he begins to like break, she gets inside of his like dark head and it breaks down and he eventually like actually loves her. I'm not a fan of that. I mean, not that it's all fine. I like to get paid, but but as far as my enjoyment in reading goes, I don't like reading that toxic stuff, man.
Well, I mean, I think that's also where it's so awesome that we have these variety of genres and tropes within romance. So you can have the reader that wants to get into that more psychopathic, you know, reading, because maybe they have everything great at home. Others, I would much rather go for the fire fiend. I mean, I've read some of the dark romance. There is a limit, just because again, for me, it's about the escapism. And even though you know, when people ask me about my relationship, I'm like, okay, well, here it goes. So he was a front desk, you know, I was a front desk receptionist. He was the academic advisor. So, you know, college situation there. There's an 8-year difference. So there's that age gap situation there. Oh, yeah. You know, and a student, teacher, professor, because he was also a teacher and I was a student at the university at the time. But at the same time, I'm going 20 years later, I'm still fighting with him over the shoes he left everywhere. So yeah, there's, you know, that some of that escapism when it goes into the small town romance. It's a little bit of like, oh yeah, I'm familiar with a little bit of that and everything. And oh yeah, a baker, and he wants to buy the shop to make it into a whiskey factory. Just
yes,
dude,
that's adorable. That's the stuff that I like to perform when I get the chance. It feels it's easier to get for me to find that heart place, that genuine, like it's easier for that guy to get emotional and serious and those kinds of things than it is for like the MC club president who just took out a gang of the cartel to like turn around and be like, I love you so much.
Yeah, there's $1,000, you know, there's 1,000 bodies laying wake right there.
Yeah. And
I came home to
each
you.
other in the wreckage of it. And it's just like, it probably smells. Probably smells.
I was gonna be like, I love you, but you need a shower.
You are so gross right now.
Yeah, like let's go get the blood off you first, honey. Thanks.
Oh no, but in the books, that's the hot part.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, man. They're like, oh.
Yeah, but that's also where they again, it goes back to the whole, for them as a fantasy. They're like, yeah, because in real life, you better put your shoes out there in the front patio.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
So it's all that fun stuff. It's again, one of the reasons why I love the community is to show something for everybody. People discovering new things about themselves, whether it's a kink or that they want to start baking because of the whole, you know, whiskey maker taking over the baking machine. At this point, I'm like, you guys do know that you guys can work together, right? Like you can have half the bakery can be baked goods, the other half can be the whiskey distillery, and you can.
I know I'm always looking for a cookie and a scotch,
right? Well, there are some flavored Scotch cookies out there. Hello, you know. Bourbon cupcakes are a thing in certain areas, so why not? Sure. But yeah, it's all fun. So now that we know that you're looking for that kind of cookie, when you're not working and doing now the whole ambulance little house thing going on that you're doing project wise, what do you do for fun?
I ride a motorcycle. I play Dungeons and Dragons. I'm a big outdoor guy. I like to spend extended time in the wilderness, 5-day plus trips. What else do I do for fun? I'm a guy. I play video games. I try to keep it reasonable though. That's probably not the hottest thing to say, but it's just true. I do really genuinely try to keep it reasonable. Yeah, those are most outdoors, Dungeons Dragons, working on this ambulance, riding my motorcycle. Oh, and I ride a thing called the one wheel, which is kind of like an electric skateboard a lot. I really enjoy that.
Nice. Sounds like fun.
Yeah, I try to stay active.
Yeah, it's good. You work with words all day with the narrating side of things and also knowing that you are a reader as well. What's your favorite word? Which is separate, by the way, of the favorite curse word, which is the second part of this question.
Oh, my favorite word. Oh, man. Well, I love love. I've already said that. I love love. And, I've always, when I think of this question or questions like it, what immediately pops into my head is that scene from Donnie Darko where Drew Barrymore says the most beautiful words in the English language are cellar door. I don't know. That's what pops into my head. But
okay.
I love the concept of love. I love I love that idea. Love the word love.
Okay, cool. So what about a favorite curse word?
Oh, cunt's a good one, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. When I use that one, someone's pissed me off.
Yeah, or it's when you're doing accents, it's fun to be like, you daddy cunt. It's a fun one to throw at it. Obviously, fuck is literally one of the most impressive words. Just speaking like analytically, one of the most impressive words in any language. The versatility of the word fuck and its uses. Properly used uses in the English language is truly baffling. So that's neat. I don't know if it's my favorite, but I think that's super neat.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So what song do you have to sing along with when you hear it, regardless of where you're at? So I'm talking about grocery store in the frozen section. All of a sudden that song pops up and you're like having to sing along with it.
Oh, wow. I think every Friends in Low Places is that classic white person. Like that song comes on and, as a deep bred Texan, I have another story. It's a little more personal than that. In high school, again, I grew up in the heart of Texas. We would not leave assemblies or pep rallies until the entire school sang the entirety of "You Don't Have to Call Me Darlin'" by David Allan Coe. Yeah, every school assembly, everyone would not leave until we sang that entire song. We did the fight song, the school song, and then David Allan Coe, and then everyone was dismissed. Wow. So that's fun. I sing along with that song pretty much every time it comes on, which is rare. It's not like people are playing a lot of David Allan Coe these days, and for good reason.
Yeah. But I do ask this question because it was fascinating because I had someone ask me like why. I'm like, well, it's not because I'm adding these songs to my playlist. So when we're hanging out together in person for the first time, it just starts playing automatically for no reason.
Oh,
right?
No, not my favorite song. None of these songs are my favorite songs. They're the songs that I sing when they come on the radio. Oh, Mr. Jones. There's one that I really like and I sing along. By Counting Crows. Mr. Jones. That one. I love that song. Okay. Sing along with that a lot.
Cool. One of the things I love doing with my guests is the game of Two Truths and a Lie, where you tell me 3 things about you, and we have to figure out which one's the lie. Figure out how good of a liar you are. So if you're ready.
Yeah.
All right. So
I used to lead whitewater expeditions. I used to be a rock climbing instructor. I used to lead outdoor wilderness guide expeditions.
Fuck you. You did all the stuff that are outdoorsy. Now I just got to figure out which one he has not done. Jeez Louise, sir. Okay.
Which one is it?
Rock climbing, river rafting, or the expeditions? Oh my goodness. Rock climbing is the lie?
No, rock climbing is the truth. I have not been a whitewater instructor.
Oh, right, water instructor. See, that's the one that I actually had like starred next to mine. Oh my goodness. They go with your gut instincts more often.
When I was in grad school,
Mm-hmm.
I worked at the Outdoor Pursuit Center,
Mm-hmm.
and I did both of those. I also led expeditions after college, but in college, I led outdoor pursuit, camping adventures, and then I worked at the rock wall there and was a rock wall climbing instructor.
Wow. Very, very outdoorsy.
Yeah. I find that about the time my friends are ready to go home is about the time I get really, really into being outdoors. 5 days is when everyone I know is ready to go home. And
Uh-huh.
when I start to like all gears are finally firing for me, and I'm really truly comfortable.
Oh, wow. Jeez Louise. I'm the outdoorsy where she goes out under the tree and reads the book.
Yeah, me too. I love that too. I'll go to the park. There's nothing wrong with
Mhm.
that. But like
Yeah.
I love being literally, 20 or miles plus away from any kind of civilization, true wilderness, just away. You hear a plane and you're like, what the hell is that? And
Mm.
it's so disturbing, and it makes you realize just how much ridiculous noise pollution we put up with on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And anyway, about 5 days is when 8 days is when I'm ready to go home, I'll admit. But like
Okay.
5, 6, 7, 8, I'm just, that's heaven for me.
Yeah, heaven.
Heaven.
Yeah. No, it's I have yet to do the whole camping, like actual camping. I've done a bit of the glam camping and
Mhm.
staying in cabins with air conditioning. So that's
That isn't
technically
that is
not
that
not
is not
camping.
camping.
Right. So
But
one
I feel
day.
like I feel like it's about finding someone who has the experience, because they can
Yes.
really make it a lot of fun. If you and your friends who have never gone camping go, it's gonna be miserable. You're gonna sleep on rocks. You're not gonna be able to start a fire. You're gonna eat hot dogs. It's terrible. But if I go, I'm gonna have you set up in a hammock. We're gonna get that fire started right up. We're gonna eat something delicious, and it really changes the experience a lot.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, see, that's the thing. Knowing that if I was going with other people that have never been camping, I would try to do all the SMEing and becoming that subject matter expert, which is exhausting, and then it's no fun
yes.
for me. So I've yet to find someone. You see, maybe you should start doing like a narrators retreats with the
Oh,
authors.
I
You
would
know,
love that. I would
you
love
know,
that. That's future plans. That's
yeah,
future plans.
yeah.
Put
So
all my
now,
loves together,
yeah,
narration and outdoor and teaching. Holy
yeah.
crap.
Oh yeah,
Holy
talk about a
crap.
writers retreats heaven there. Y'all writing about a camping ground. Yeah, here we go. Talk to Tyler. We're gonna get there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh.
But before we go, can you tell us what you're currently working on and what's coming up next for you?
I'm currently working on for Tantor the Silver Spoon series, which is a series of short novellas about a MC motorcycle club romance where they're all seemingly very successful. So it's not an outlaw MC. They're like good people who ride motorcycles.
Hmm.
I also have the Viking MC series that I'm working on. Heart of Steel's already out. The rest of the series is coming. I forget the name of it, but it's our 2 other ones are already recorded and will be released soon. I'm about to start working on the 4th. I just finished Having the Cowboy's Baby, which is, we talked about that, one of those hometown, really sweet romances. I actually really enjoyed working on that one. Got to do my Texas accent.
Mm-hmm.
I got to be a cowboy. I got to win the redhead. I love redheads. Uh, it was a good book. I really enjoyed that one. And I also just finished Merry Masquerade, which is another novella, which is about an older couple going through miscommunication and almost having a divorce, and then finding their kinky side together. So kind of cute.
Cute. Yeah, that's what I
It
think.
is. I know the way
Cute.
I say that. Like, yeah, I know when you go kink, it's like, but it is. It's cute the way they
Yeah,
manage to
yeah.
set it up. She thinks he's cheating because he's doing advertisement for a sex club, and so she gets like he's going to the sex club, and she thinks and it, and so then they go to a masquerade ball. All right, I won't go too far into it, but it's a fun
No,
one.
but it sounds fun. Yeah, I think
Yeah, it
sometimes.
really is, and it's a novella, so it's like
Yeah.
a 4-hour book. So
Nice. Yeah, I do like it sometimes where you kind of have to rekindle that romance or relearn because we change with age in a relationship, things change. And And sometimes we don't tell things because we're afraid of how the reaction is.
And that's exactly what this book is about.
Yeah.
And that's why I enjoyed it. Again, it's relatable. Me being the mafia don, I maybe some people on the East Coast can relate to that better, but it's just not part of my culture. And it's not something that I can easily be like, yeah, that's something I could get behind.
But cowboys and, doing some advertising for a kink and realizing, hey, I might want to try that.
All of that seems very relatable to me. Having communication issues in a relationship, I don't think anyone cannot relate to.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's like, oh, I didn't know we could try that. Oh, okay.
Yeah. And that's exactly. They're both like, oh, that's the end of the book, is they're both like, oh, I didn't know that you wanted to be a little bit dirty too. Like, dirty.
It's like, I like it. Yeah.
Right. little slap and tickle. Let's go.
Goes a long way.
Yeah. Here's something that on a personal level that I can thank my romance career for. Teaching me the importance of dirty talk. Holy, there's probably 0 guys listening, but if there are any men listening to this, I just imagine that the Romance Novel Podcast pulls in a larger percentage of women listeners. But if there are guys listening to me, don't be scared. Don't be afraid. Say that nasty, don't call her names, but say the nastiest thing you can think of to her. I promise it helps. Don't call her names, but tell her to do nasty things. Okay. That is the best advice. It will change your sex life. Don't call her names unless she wants you to. Check first.
Check first. Yes. Consent.
Check on the names things. Sometimes they like it. Sometimes they don't. You got to make sure, but to start with, no names and then ask. That's how you do that.
Yeah.
That's my advice. It's real advice. I'm serious. Do that.
Yes. No, it's
she will thank you.
Yeah. No, it's nothing like, and you don't realize sometimes that you'd like it until it happens to you. And you're going,
it's like a whole nother level, especially if your girl be listening to audiobooks, because she's clearly a very audio stimulated person. So hearing that stuff, dude, I'm telling you, you will cut, this is a little graphic, but you said it's 18 plus. You will cut down orgasm time in half. Half to get her there, man. Half as much work. You're doing yourself and her a favor.
Well, I mean, it's statistically speaking, and studies have been done that women are more, audio affected when it comes down to, sexual relationships, while men are more visual.
Exactly.
So it just makes sense that when you have a partner that
and dudes are so scared. They're worried about being judged, and I understand that because
silly,
or them just literally laughing at you. Which, hey, man, at some point, some girl will and fuck her, bro. But like 90% of the girls are gonna be like, yes. They're gonna tell their friends. They're gonna call their mom, dude. I'm telling you.
Well, they're definitely call their friends and say, "Oh my god, girl."
Yes.
He said my name and then he told me what he wanted. Oh my God.
He told me to do it and he did not say please.
Yes. Right. Yeah. It's those little things. You'd be surprised. A lot of learnings can happen while listening and reading books and romance.
Yeah. Romance novels. Thank you. Thank you for that.
And now you're all set up for success for your next relationship as well.
Yeah,
right?
We'll see.
You have to come back to the podcast. Viviana did not work. I'm like, I'm sorry.
It works. It works for sex. Relationships is the issue here.
Yeah. Well, that's true. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, but I know it's again all good learnings and stuff like that, and then just discovering new things. But
I'll tell you, relationship wise, romance novels will teach you what not to. All the things. Don't do anything communication wise that they do in a romance novel other than the dirty talk. There's everything else that dude does in that book. Do not attempt.
Yeah.
Do not attempt.
Yes, open lines of communications is a good thing. Otherwise, like in real life, you get a book thrown at you. In this case,
try not to kidnap the girl you like. They do not respond the same in reality as they do in romance novels.
That is true. Yep, that is true. That is true. Yep.
Very different circumstances.
Yeah. They may like to get surprised and be, scurried off into a unknown location for a vacation, but
conversation, you know what I mean? All of this is communication. Listen, she may want that. She may want you to kidnap her and throw her in the back of the trunk, but consent is our first step.
Yes, that's a different kind of kink, and all of it's consensual. That's for sure.
CNC, man, I've done some of those books too.
Yeah, no, it's again, all learnings. It's all fun. But thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with me today. It's been so much fun getting to know you and learning all this fun stuff with you. If you're not following him on social media, I will make sure to provide all the links. He's been posting a lot more lately, so it's always a good thing. And you will find all this information on today's episode over at Viviana, Enchantress of Books. Until next time, happy listenings.
Thank you to all of our Audiobook Lovin Podcast Patreon. Special thanks to Nixley Zenner, Carol Liebner, Brittany Robinette Leiter, Michelle Bastard,
Brandy Schmidt, April Branson.
The Audiobook Lovin Podcast has special Patreon access levels. Join today to receive benefits including early access to episodes, shout-outs, special exclusive content, and much more. Support the podcast by becoming a Patreon at www.patreon.com/audiobookloving. We thank you for your support.
Thank you for joining us on the Audiobook Lovin Podcast, hosted by Viviana, Enchantress of Books. For links and more information discussed in today's episode, previous podcasts, or the Audiobook Lovin Series, please visit our website, vivianaenchantressofbooks.com. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a positive review wherever you listen to our podcast. Until next time, happy listening.